Hey everyone, my name is Tristan and welcome to my workshop. I've been playing a lot of Among Us with my friends recently and I really enjoyed the game, so I thought I'd make something from it. So in this video, I'll show you how you can make your own Among Us Crewmate helmet. It's a great project for beginners because it's really simple, doesn't require many tools, and can be completed in a weekend. So let's not waste any time and get right into the build. To make this helmet, I need a dome shape, and to make it, I'll use my own dome templates which you can get on my Etsy store. I scaled my templates to 135% because I want the helmet to be oversized. All you have to do to use those templates is to scale them at the size you need, print them, and cut them out. For this build, I'll only be using the regular floor mat foam which you can get at most hardware store, and a pack of 4 sheets can go for as cheap as $10. To make sure my templates stay in place, I pin them down with sewing pins, then I use a Sharpie to trace around them, and I also transfer the registration marks. When I have my right side piece done, I flip the template and trace it once more to get the left side. I do the same for the other template piece. Also remember to mark which side is the front and which is the back, you don't want to mix those up. When your templates are all transferred to your foam, take out your box cutter and either sharpen it or put a new blade in. You want your cuts to be as clean as possible. Then get to work. Make sure your blade is perpendicular to the table or else your pieces will glue together at an angle. When you're done, this is what you should have. The next step is to heat form our pieces, and for that you'll need a heat gun. If you're wondering if you can use a hairdryer for this, the answer is no. A hairdryer won't get anywhere close to the temperatures you need to heat form this thickness of foam. If you're heat forming thinner foam like 2 or 4mm and your hairdryer can get very hot, it might work, but I don't recommend it. Now that every piece has been rounded with heat, it's time to glue them together. I'm using contact cement, which is the fastest and easiest way to glue foam together, not to mention the strongest. But this type of glue can be expensive and it's really nasty. If you use contact cement, wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area or just outside. The way contact cement works is you apply a layer on both surfaces you want to glue together, then you let it dry until it doesn't stick to your finger anymore, and then stick both your pieces together. I start by attaching one side of the dome together, and then I do the same for the other side. And finally, I stick both sides together to complete the dome. Now that I'm done with the top of the helmet, I have to make the rest, so I take out my measuring tape to measure how much foam I need to wrap around the whole thing. I got 34.5 inches, but I removed a ½ inch to account for the thickness of the foam. Because one sheet is only 22 inches wide, I'll cut out 2 strips and glue them together. I decided to make my strips 6 inches tall. So I simply trace down 2 rectangles with a straight edge and then I cut them out with my box cutter. Then I mark both pieces at 17 inches and cut off the excess foam. If you're following, you should have 2 6 by 17 inch rectangles. On the center of one of my pieces, I traced an 8 by 4.5 inch rectangle. This will be the opening for the visor. Now because I want my corners to be rounded, I take out one of my sharpened PVC pipe and drill a hole in each corner. You could totally use the box cutter for this, but I have the tool so I'm gonna use it. Then I simply connect the lines to get an opening for the visor. Those 2 pieces need to be rounded, so I heat form them with my heat gun. Before gluing the pieces to the dome, I mark the center of each of them so I can line them up with the center seam on the dome. Next, I fold the template piece you see on screen in half and mark the center with my Sharpie. Finally, I transfer that line on each side of the dome. Now it's time to glue everything together. So I add glue to the dome, then to the front piece, and I stick them together carefully, following the mark I added earlier. And I do the same for the back piece. To make sure it doesn't stick to the sides by itself, I cover them with paper while I stick the piece to the dome. Keep in mind that the better you line up your seams, the less cleanup you'll have to do later. I decided to add a little trim piece at the bottom just to give the helmet some more detail. And this is how the helmet looks all assembled. For a couple hours of work, I think it looks awesome. Of course, you can totally see the seams, so let's fix that. First, I take out various types of sandpaper. I use them to sand down my seams. Some of them weren't glued perfectly flush, so this will remove the excess height. Then I fill my seams with flexible filler. This one from Liquitex is a bit expensive, but you can use Quick Seal, which works exactly the same. I apply a bit of filler over each seam and then smooth it down with water. Make sure not to add too much filler because it will take forever to dry and it won't look good. When the filler is completely dry, I take out a medium grit sanding sponge and go over every seam to even out the surface. It's nearly time for painting, but because foam likes to absorb any kind of paint, you'll have to seal the helmet first. I use Mod Podge, but you can use a rubber coating like Plastidip or a PVA glue like wood glue. If you do use wood glue, make sure to thin it down with a bit of water. I apply the Mod Podge with a good quality brush, and to get a nice even surface I apply 3 coats. Because the Mod Podge leaves some brush strokes and I don't want to see them through the paint, I sand the whole helmet with my 180 grit sanding sponge. I don't want spray paint to get inside the helmet, so I cover the visor opening with masking tape. And because I want the lower trim to be black and I know it's hard to paint over glossy spray paint, I cover it with masking tape too. Now it's time for painting. I use 2X gloss paint from Rust-Oleum in orange. If you've never used spray paint before, keep in mind that gloss paint makes drips very easily if you apply it too thick. What I recommend is to apply it in thin coats, waiting around 10 minutes between each one. Don't worry if your first coat doesn't give complete coverage, next ones will do. Because I'm used to this paint, I apply it a bit thicker, but if you don't have much experience, stick to thin coats. When the spray paint is dry, I remove the masking tape and paint the lower trim by hand with black acrylic paint. I apply 2 coats for complete coverage. Now let's make the visor. I start by cutting out 2 frames slightly bigger than the visor opening. For the visor itself, I'm using plastic folders from the dollar store. And for the light and dark shading, I use white and black cardstock. I made myself a little template to trace onto the plastic folder. I simply trace around it with a Sharpie and then cut out my pieces with a razor pen. This is how I'll glue everything together. First is one of the frame pieces, then goes on one piece of the folder, followed by the 2 shading pieces, then I add 2 more layers of the plastic folder, and finally the second frame. I slowly glue everything together with my hot glue gun. I don't put a ton of hot glue because I don't want it to seep out. The final frame gets glued on with contact cement because it's much stronger than hot glue. I apply some on both pieces, wait a couple minutes, and carefully glue them together using the paper trick from earlier. Let's attach the frame to the helmet. I use masking tape to hold it in the right place, and then I take out my hot glue gun and secure the visor from the inside. The final step is to make the helmet fit your head. I like to use upholstery foam because it's easy to cut and you can glue it in with hot glue. I simply cut and glue pieces in until the helmet fits my head snugly. And now you should have your own foam Among Us Crewmate helmet. So here is the final result, and I think that for less than 2 days of work, it looks really awesome. The cool thing is you can make it any color you want, and you and your friends can each make your own to cosplay as a group. Now this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, you can leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more cool stuff like this. If you want to get the dome templates, they are available on my Etsy store for pretty cheap along with many other templates. The link is in the description below. And if you want to see more of what I do, things that don't always make it into my videos, follow me on Instagram. Once again, thanks for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!